What statement in Scripture did they quote to substantiate abandonment as ground for divorce? 1 Corinthians 7. Let's go there then. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And let's take a look at verse 10. Allow me to read. It says, "For unto the married I command, yet not I, but the Lord. Let not the wife depart from her husband." Stop right there. Let's go slowly. Analyze this. Let not the wife depart from her husband. So who is initiating the separation? It's the wife. Let not the wife depart. So she is initiating the separation. Look at verse 11. What does Paul say next? "But and if she depart, let her remain unmarried." What is the key to unlock the Scripture? The only ground for divorce and remarriage is what? Come on now, is what? It is adultery. So verse number 11 says, "If she depart, let her remain how? Unmarried." Which simply means, by clear understanding, since she cannot remarry, it's because she departed without biblical grounds. Because if she departed from her husband, based on biblical ground, she can remarry. Let's continue. It says, "Or be reconciled to her husband." They're still married in God's sight. "And let not the husband put away his wife." That's the last phrase of verse 11. So can the husband initiate the separation? Yes. Go to verse 12. "But to the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife, and believeth not," that's the phrase now, "and believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away." What does that mean? This, in my understanding, represents two persons who were married before either joined the faith. Verse 12, "But and if any brother hath a wife," they're already married, "but the wife believes not," because remember, we do not promote nor support a believer, SDA, marrying a non-SDA. See my point now? All right, come back here now. So they are not SDA, but they're married. But now one finds the faith, SDA, but the other spouse is an unbeliever. Verse 12, "If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away." It makes sense. Because you have no grounds to put her away just because she does not believe. Continue, verse 13. "And Paul gives the other spouse the same counsel. And the woman which hath an husband that believeth not, if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him." Does it make sense? Go to verse 15 now. Verse 15. "But if the unbelieving depart, let him depart." A brother or a sister is not under bondage in such cases. And that's the verse the SDA leaders are building their false doctrine and policy upon. Verse 15, "If the unbelieving depart, let him depart." Stop right there. Stop right there. Can a spouse force another to remain in the marriage relation? No, you can't force anybody. So, if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. Watch now, next sentence, verse 15. "A brother or a sister is not under bondage in such cases." Now they say that means you're no longer bound by the marriage vow. You can you can divorce and be remarried. What? Here's the simple truth. Number one, when the unbeliever departs, the believer cannot remarry until three things. Number one, until the unbeliever dies. Then you can remarry. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 39. Romans 7 and verse 2. Number two, when the unbeliever leaves, the believer still cannot remarry until number two, that unbeliever now remarries. You can now marry. Make sense? Violates the marriage vow. Or number three, the unbeliever separates, divorces, quote unquote, the believer cannot remarry until that unbeliever commits adultery, even before he or she marries. So verse 15, a time factor must be considered, but if the unbelieving depart, let him depart, period. A brother or a sister is not under bondage. In such cases, how many times we see scriptures in one verse? A time factor must be considered. And yet, in the light of this statement, if the wife is an unbeliever and an opposer, the husband cannot, in the view of the law of God, put her away on this ground alone.